Okay, good morning everybody and welcome back to another video where today we're going to be taking a look at these guys. These are 4 LEGO Legend of Zelda Brickheadz, 4 very many talented designers that were not designed by me, with potential partial exception for this one. And we're going to take a look at these today, and you may be wondering why, and that is because back before we had LEGO Zelda figures and official sets, Brickheadz were some of the easiest and cheapest ways for people to get sort of semi-passable representations of characters from, well, Zelda into LEGO form and to have them on your desk. And obviously that is where I did these guys back before I was buying my own custom models in about 2021. And I was actually on the verge of scrapping them. After so many years of sort of having the models, I'd only really built them the once. And then of course, as Decatry and obviously conventions and stuff picked up, I found that maybe I didn't have as much need for them. So I thought, well, I'm going to build them, do a video on them, and then I'm going to scrap them. However, that is no longer the case because I've actually come to be quite fond of 3 of them. We will get to you. Now, I should mention that all of these are done by some very talented designers, which I'm going to list off now, and all of them have been sourced by real LEGO parts. I am aware that versions of this, and this all exist on third-party retailers. However, I encourage you to not buy from these as they were not done with the designer's permission and were stolen by third-party manufacturers, and the original designers, who are very talented, do not profit from this. It is something we've obviously talked about on the channel before. But let's rattle through them quickly before I show you the details up close. This is Girahim from Skyward Sword. It's my favorite of the 4, largely because, well, we don't have a Girahim and there are some questionable decisions made here. He's also one of my personal favorite characters, and this is a combination designed by Clutcherini on Bricklink Studio, who designed the version specifically I want to call out with the curved hair, which I really liked. And it is also a combination with the Dr. Brickheadz version of Girahim as well. And we sort of combined the two together here to create one that I wanted for my collection. So just a little bit of merge work on him. We then have Stormy Mythos's Breath of the Wild Link. This one's pretty famous. I personally have grown not to dislike as in like it's bad, but I'm not a huge fan of the color for the hair choice here. Again, this is built with genuine LEGO parts. I did not buy these from third-party manufacturers and knockoff companies. Here we have the Stormy Mythos Breath of the Wild Zelda. These two, of course, are a pair and look great together. I'm happy with the hair on him. And then lastly, we have the Deku Scrubster Breath of the Wild Guardian, which is a really awkward one to turn into a Brickheadz, but I think it has turned out quite well. I'm actually going to start with this one because it is so unique. Now, Brickheadz, you may assume, always have to be sort of characters, and while generally speaking these look great, sometimes the sort of really dorky ones like this also are really quite cute. So yes, this is the only version of a Guardian, excluding the scouts, that I actually have in my current LEGO Zelda collection. The time I did this back in 2020-21, these quarter round tiles, which at the time were only just coming into production in Dark Tan, were really quite expensive to get hold of. But yeah, think of it like the Firstborn and the various other non-humanoid ones that they've done. And yeah, it was a really talented designer that sort of made this to fruition. I particularly really like the sort of scaling of the head, so on. You've got the laser here, as well as all of the recreation of the details. And at this scale, I do think it is completely recognizable, just small and shrunken, shibified. Will I end up keeping these guys long term? I don't know. I think, for example, this Link needs to be redone. Obviously, face I really like the texture on the hair. I feel that suits Breath of the Wild, but I really don't think this is the color for him. I don't know if all these parts exist in Pearl Gold, because that would obviously be the first choice now to match the official minifigure, but I'm thinking that medium nougat could be a nice sort of compromise color. I really like the way the tunic's been done and sort of the strap across, although I may look at changing this for accuracy, and I wouldn't mind getting some more of the colors specifically into the archery band on one of his arms as well. We've got a little traveler's shield, which I suppose we could switch out now for the printed one from the official set. And then of course we have a little Sheikah Slate down here as well, and then a Master Sword. Actually, why not? Let's quickly try that right now before we go over the rest of the details, and let's switch out the weapons. Okay, so the sword doesn't quite fit in this configuration, but I actually do really kind of like the Traveler's Shield, although it's a little, maybe small, little unrecognizable. I certainly won't be leaving it on this Brickheadz. As I said, he's my least favorite of the 4. It doesn't mean I'm going to scrap it. And I think part of that just comes down to how overexposed he is from obviously the unfortunate situation with the knockoffs and so on. And as I said, yeah, the Master Sword here, not sitting great, so I think we'll get rid of those. But he's got the earrings, which I always really appreciate when people remember to include those, really plain back, and he's got his little knot down the side. So I think if I'm keeping this guy, and I do want to keep him because I like the Zelda more, and obviously if we're going to have one, we're going to have a Link and Zelda, then I want to redo the hair color as well. Breath of the Wild Zelda was a really interesting one. When I did the sort of the instructions version of this versus the reverse engineering, I always like a bit of a challenge, and you'll notice that in order to get this offset, which was very clear to the design, I had to do some pretty janky technique stuff. So if I rip her face off, you can see that it is held in at a very specific custom angle, which allowed me to get the snot work here for the top of that, but let's put her face back on. You've got a little silent princess down here, which is just done with the most common of common pieces. My favorite detail for her is the use of the 1x1 pips to do the braid around the back. This hair color is of course perfect for her, even though the official set chose the sort of orange here. This was obviously done in advance of that, and okay, just fits my personal preference. You guys know I always go for a blonde Zelda instead when I do the custom figures. And yeah, even just the layering the boots, all of these are fairly standard Brickheadz details, and these two have turned out great. It's just a shame that I would like him to match her a little bit better. So we may look into golden bits that, because C3PO has really opened up the new sort of gold parts. So potential upgrades on him. Quite happy with Zelda. And then lastly, but certainly not least, my favorite of the four, we have Girahim here. Again, a character I think that potentially still stays my favorite because he obviously has not come as a figure. I would love to have him as a figure. I love how the cape has been done, where you can see all of those sort of curving different plates in different angles in order to sort of create that ripple and then give him that sort of collar at the top. It comes around and onto the front where we've got the chain, and then the droopy bit in the middle for the sort of triangular point of it. You've got the little stripes for representing on his knees. I've given him a katana. He's got this sort of over-exaggerated ear, again, sort of breaking Brickheadz protocol, but it was necessary because I really wanted him to have that diamond. And then just, yeah, the addition of that curve to the hair that's coming across the face, and then that little bit of magenta around the eye as well, is really fun. To me, he's instantly recognizable. He's translated really well, and I actually have a lot of history about trying to turn Girahim into Brickheadz, which you may or may not have seen on the channel before. I'll put an image up now, because as I mentioned, the reason that I wanted Brickheadz in my collection was, one, because I was there when they originally came out and I was quite fond of the idea of them, and then secondly, because back in the day there was no real way to do Legos of minifigures, and I didn't find myself satisfied with like my purest Girahim and purest Breath of the Wild Link, so I wanted nicer shelf to pieces so I could actually say I had something from the Zelda franchise. And I went through a fair few mocks at the time, either recreating them based off old ideas submissions to try and sort of save them, or just to build, because one, I love them and obviously I grew up on them. We think back to Wes Talbot's Iron Knuckle Encounter, which I want to redo again this year to put with the Ganon set and the Deku Tree. And these ones were really influential at the time, and I guess I just didn't assume that I'd ever do my mocks in real life. I don't know why we didn't make that assumption, or maybe I didn't think they were good enough, which is true. But yeah, having these from some really talented designers was always part of the goal, so that I could have a mix of official stuff hopefully one day, and now these guys on a shelf. And yeah, hopefully with some modifications I can come up with my own way to make a Breath of the Wild Link I'm happy with. Obviously these were not the only ones I have planned, so for the second half of this video what I wanted to do was take a look back at some of the amazing Brickheadz that have been designed based off this franchise. As well, I know it's a theme that doesn't necessarily get a lot of love, and I know it's quite niche and it's sort of it's interest range, and while people do love them, they kind of maybe see them a bit more worthless in the portfolio, and unfortunately I've definitely shifted towards that since since building these guys all that time ago. But I still think they have their place, and I still think that they're obviously incredibly definitions of skill. I would argue that by learning how to design Brickheadz is actually how I learned a lot of how to build, and I really do credit it with that a lot. So while maybe I don't want like 50 of these on a shelf anymore, I think having a couple of cool ones based on characters I enjoy from the franchise would make for a nice small display, and would help to tribute to what I believe is an important part of the community and the development of the LEGO Zelda fandom. So let's go digital, and I'll show you some of the ones I've recreated, both in studio, but then also some of the images for ones I plan to recreate. So I thought we would start with the ones that have already been recreated, and I have this file in studio where I just kind of keep stacking them up, and I didn't get very far with this project. It's not one that I've particularly touched recently, but of course we already had the aforementioned Stormy Mythos, Breath of the Wild Link and Breath of the Wild Zelda, but I also have his 4 champions here in digital, and in particular I would love to have this as a full set. This sort of became less of a priority once the champions art was finished, but can you imagine that shelf display where you've sort of got the champions art and then all 6 Brickhead forms underneath them as well, and then hopefully one day all 6 minifigures, but who knows whether that will happen. Either way, I thought it was it's really cute, and I love how these ones turned out. Specifically, the Daruk arms was a really nice challenge, and Rivali, of course, being my favourite champion, but also just in general, is looking great here. Abosa's hair also deserves a shout out, as it does in most versions where Abosa is built, but it goes down a really long way, and once again, all of these have been recreated using official LEGO parts rather than the knockoff versions, because I wanted to pay tribute to, of course, Stormy Mythos' original designs, and also you've got Rivali's braids that come out the back as well. And yeah, everything just looks great. I was really pleased with how these 4 turned out, and they are sort of a perfect 6 collection. We then have Pick-a-Bricks, Kilton and Lionel. This was a 2-pack that was posted on Rebrickable a fair while ago now. And these two were fantastic. I mean, lesser known characters, not exactly prime choices of Brickheadz. However, I think that's what makes it so stellar. I particularly love the Lionel. I think that the use of the green Lloyd eyes that appeared on Lloyd, and then I think have since appeared on Tails. I actually have bought these parts because I do intend I did intend, I think I still do intend, I don't know, this video is kind of changing and messing with my mind, but I do intend to recreate it. So to have those already is a great use because those are printed parts as well. Specifically using the Tauntaun horns as well is great, and you've got sort of the rounded back, and it's got the big glaive on the back and 4 legs. And again, once again, I love it when the Brickheadz go a bit weird. So the centaur-like thing here is fantastic. And then of course we have the Kilton that came with this pack as well. I love the use of the Lord of the rings on the ears. We've got the little doggy bone from, I believe it was the Series 20 dog costume guy that came in teal. The white eyes as well, and then a little swirly little shell on his head as well. And I've got the hood around the back, and yeah, just a really random one, but just I think really sweet. And you've even got like the belly button with like the 1x2 jumper plate as well. So these were fantastic. You've of course already seen the Guardian as well. And then the last one I recreated was also an Ear of the Wild. And trust me, it wasn't just like an Ear of the Wild bias. Remember, Skyward Sword is my favourite. But we had this wonderful Hestu that was done by YS Jahimni 1, and this one has free instructions over on Rebrickable as well, and it just looks so cute. This was again before Deku Tree, but I just really like how it's turned out. The use of the maracas, I love it when they can hold existing accessories, and yeah, just the leaves have been done so smartly here, and he was just a character that made a lot of sense. While we're talking about Deku Tree appearances though, a more recent one that I haven't had a chance to recreate but does look absolutely fantastic is the S. Gomez B Deku Tree Brickheadz, which is a Deku Tree Brickhead as you would expect, and a Deku Sprout as well, which looks adorable in Brickheadz form. This is very obviously silly, in a good way. Silly is always a compliment, usually, because neither of these are well suited to Brickheadz form, but it's so charming, especially because of course the new symbolism of having the Deku Tree as our sort of main set. Well, the first LEGO Zelda set, and now our first retired LEGO Zelda set as well, or soon to be, I should say. I also wanted to draw attention to the Mockery Mummies Ganon from the original classic ones. I love the classic pig Ganon design, and this Brickheadz translates really well. Of course, it's got that sort of anthropomorphic head, so you've got the tusks coming out, but also even the skull necklace and the big trident as well. I just think this one's been done really, really well and would be an adorable one to have on shelf, although probably not one I will ever bother doing, because I have my Brick-built Echoes of Wisdom Ganon, which gets very, very close to this design as well. We also very much could not do this video without talking about Dr. Brickheadz. We mentioned him earlier when we talked about the Girahim from Skyward Sword, and on the whole, I'm usually an absolutely huge fan of his designs, and he's covered pretty much all of the major games. I'll start by drawing attention to the Tears of the Kingdom setup with Rauru, both Minoru, and then Minoru's Construct being, again, another fantastic addition. But he's covered all the main characters with some like Pura, as well as Mummified Ganon, as well as, well, as you would expect, normal Ganondorf, and of course all of these sages as well. But I just think it was absolutely delightful how these have been done, and seeing characters like Minoru's Construct brought into LEGO form was just so exciting to see, because again, it's another one that you would never ever expect. This was one that I fully intend on doing, even though I have the constructs already, because I love Minoru's Construct, and that amiibo is far too expensive, and I can imagine I could get this one built for cheaper. But Dr. Brickheadz is obviously incredibly talented, does so much pop culture stuff, and just stuff like the Rauru just looks absolutely incredible. I really, really love it. But we wouldn't be talking about him if it was just for these. Well, we would, but just not for as long, because he's also done Majora's Mask with an absolutely fantastic moon, as well as all the mask transformations. The moon, again, another really, really inspired choice. Then, of course, Ocarina with all of the sages and so on. I think these ones were done slightly earlier than the rest. Actually, no, that is a complete lie. They were done later. And then, of course, Twilight Princess, Wolf, Link, and Midna together looked amazing. Zant, another incredibly goofy one, but that I think turned out all right. And then, potentially, my favourite of all time with his has got to be his King of Red Lions from Wind Waker. Of course, you've got all like your lobster shirts and other iconic characters. Pretty much, if there's a main character, he has covered them from the 3D games. But having the King of Red Lions turned into Brickheadz form is just hilarious. I love how this turned out. It fits that exact same MO as the Guardian. It is stylized and weird and wonderful, and I think it turned out absolutely great. And yeah, they've really sort of done the rounds, these Brickheadz, but we've got a couple more to take a look at. The wonderful Hylian builder over on LEGO Ideas did this amazing Wolf Link Brickheadz as well. Obviously the Dr. Brickhead one is great, but this is my personal favourite design with a 2x4 printed tile on the front of the head, and just looks adorable. Again, using those animal stylings that were done with the seasonal Brickheadz when they were doing those in 2018. But yeah, this Wolf Link looks super cute, and I really love how that turned out. And then over on Facebook, I also found this Wind Waker Link and Ganondorf done by Dolphin Squad Heroes of the Seas, and I just really like the use of colour, specifically the teal into this Wind Waker Ganondorf. I think this is is another one which I'd probably combine with Dr. Brickheadz in order to make my perfect one, but that's not to play down the skill here. I just think there's something off with the lower face maybe. And I just love the idea of the Toon Link one being tiny, like as in like a 2x2 one instead. So I think that's super cute. Whether these are actually fully Brickhead styles is debatable. However, they're just adorable, and the concept of Toon Link being tiny is just very, very funny to me. I think it works out really, really great. But yeah, I found that the Brickheads in general have just been this really weirdly consistent part of the thing, and while I think unfortunately they have slowly died off as time has gone on, which is a shame, and also understandable at the same time, given their obviously close connection with the pops and their trends in popularity. But this is a thing that survived for nearly a decade now, and yeah, it was cool to have some Zelda representation, or be able to do some Zelda representation, even all the way back in 2020 and earlier, of course, with these things. And obviously it's not only that, but a part of my journey here as well. So that I think even though maybe it is a less interesting topic on paper, I still think it was worth talking about. And I wanted to show you these guys before I potentially scrap them. I don't know, you guys let me know. Should I be scrapping them? Should I be keeping them? What should I do with my LEGO Zelda Brickhead? Should the collection expand? It's going to be very hard for me to budget justify, but we could look at doing some more digital models as well, and then hopefully one day they'll turn onto a shelf. One of the things is, if I didn't need one of the things I've been thinking about a lot recently, even though I really don't need any more projects right now, is going back to this idea of trying to rescue and rehabilitate some of the lost models from ideas in these earlier days. Because ideally, you know, if I was ever able to get a big enough house and a big enough space, I would love to have the official LEGO Zelda stuff, my own custom stuff, but also some tributes to the ones from the communities. Hopefully we're going to be seeing that later this summer, as I do aim to recreate Iron Knuckle Encounter from West Talbot again, and then of course some more of my own designs as well. So let me know what you think of the designs we've shown today, as well as if there are any others that I don't know about that you think would be a great addition to this lineup. Again, Ultimate LEGO Zelda, like pitch it to the skies, and I will see you guys again very, very soon. Bye bye.